So, good morning to you, Jill Tonks, Resilience and Wellbeing Coach. I hope you're well on this day. You've noticed I've had my hair cut. Yay! Finally. Today, I wanted to share a topic with you about how what you focus on is what you feed. So, it's a few years ago now, but I was working as a trauma coach on a residential event for families who had someone in the family who'd been a victim of murder or manslaughter. And it was one of the most powerful conversations I can honestly say that I've ever had. So it's a woman my age from the north of England whose son had been tragically killed in a kind of young people kind of driving late at night, and he'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I was having this conversation with her, and it happened less than a year ago. She showed me some photographs of her son, a young man in his prime, about the same age as my son was then. And I said to her, how are you? How's it been this last year? And she said, one of the things that I read, Jill, was that 9 out of 10 couples who go through such a tragic event like we have had, losing a son in such horrible circumstances, 9 out of 10 couples end in divorce. I said, oh, that's interesting. She said, but I don't want to be in that 9. I want to be in that 1, that 10% of couples for whom that doesn't happen to. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Why is that? She said, because there's not a moment goes by when I don't miss him. There's not a day goes by when I don't wake up with a tight knot of fear and anger and sadness in my stomach. So he's in my thoughts all the time. And at the same time, I've got a daughter. She had a daughter who was 16 at the time. And I've got a family, and I've got a husband. And it's important for me, it's important for them, it's important to my son that I live my life in that 10%. And I thought, wow, how powerful is that? One of the most powerful examples, I think, of somebody who is really, really struggling with what life has thrown at them, and yet they choose to focus in that 10%. So it made me think about the idea that I've been talking to you a lot about the survival brain and how it works. And when we're going through difficult times and those strong emotions kick in and our logical, rational, balanced thinking and our perspective gets hijacked by that emotional thinking, it's really easy to focus in on all the negative stuff. And when there's a lot of stuff around, or you're not in a particularly good place, sometimes that negative stuff can feel overwhelming. Because it is true that the more you focus on something, the more we feed on that, the more of that we notice. Because the survival brain, as I've talked about, has something called the negativity bias. So when our nervous system is aroused and we're emotional and things are triggering us, we go into tunnel vision because the survival brain does not want to take its eye off what it perceives as a saber-toothed tiger. And it's almost as if all of the other stuff that's around, all the stuff in our life to be grateful for, that we're lucky to have, the people around us, the opportunities we've got, whatever it is, we almost experience amnesia as a result of that, and we cannot take our eye off the stuff that's troubling us. We also have what I call the thinker-prover bias. So when something's triggering us, we tend to look for more evidence to justify that negativity, that truth. Because the reality is that when we are emotional and we do go into tunnel vision, we only see one facet of the truth. We don't see the wider, the bigger picture. So my question for you today is, where is your focus and what are you feeding on? Because I, like you, have found the last few months really challenging. It's been fantastic in some ways. Life has got simpler. I've saved quite a bit of money. I've really enjoyed being with the people that I love, that I'm here at home with. And at the same time, it's really, really challenged me. It's brought up emotions for me that I don't normally experience to that degree, and I've talked about those. There's fear, there's anger, there's anxiety about where we are and where we're going. And yet, if I carry on focusing on those, something called the blue tree syndrome kicks in. So if I say to you, don't think of a blue tree, don't think of a blue tree, what happens? You cannot not think of a blue tree when I ask you not to think about one. And that's because this wonderful brain here, in order to discount something, it has to notice it first. And so it's really easy to focus in on what we don't want. And when we focus in on what we don't want because they're not in a particularly good place, it almost brings more of what we don't want into our lives. The power of a negative suggestion is really strong in the survival brain. So my invitation for you today is to think about, how do you shift your focus from what's challenging you into that 10%? And it doesn't really matter whether you're in a tricky place or a better place today, but it's always easy to get captivated by the stuff that's not working, by the negative stuff, by the stuff that we don't want. And there's nothing wrong with that, because your survival brain is bringing stuff to your attention that needs your attention. But if that's all you focus in on, then that kind of feeds itself and can get bigger and wider. So it's not that you discount the negative stuff, far from it, but it's about how you go into that, explore that, understand that, and use that to work out what you do want. Does that make it any easier? No, sometimes it doesn't, and it certainly didn't make it any easier for that woman I was talking to you about earlier. But does it make it doable? Absolutely it does, because we have the capacity to really direct where our attention goes. But as you know, the survival brain often will hijack the helpful, more positive attention and take us to places that we don't want to go. But it's your choice whether you stay in those places that you don't want to go. It's your choice to think about, where do I want to focus my attention today? So it's about, what is it that's in your equivalent of that woman's 10%? What is it that you can shift your attention to today that's enriching, that's enabling, that's empowering, that's life-enhancing for you? And as you do that, you'll begin to notice and get a perspective on whatever it is that's on your mind at the moment. And as you do that, that gives you some options and choices about what you might want to do about whatever it is that you're finding challenging for you at the moment. So I'm going to leave you with that final question. What is it that you're focusing on today? And is that feeding or enriching your life? Or is it doing the opposite? Because ultimately, you have a choice. And it's not always an easy choice, particularly if you've got a lot of stuff on at the moment. But it nevertheless is still a choice. You can choose what you focus on, and you can choose what you choose to feed yourself on. Something that's enriching and enabling, or something that takes away from you and how you are on this day. I hope that's prompted you to think about how you can have a better focus, a better quality of attention on this day. Again, thanks for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.